Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast, where we show you how to break free from the grind and achieve real financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Ryan D. Lee, and I've helped thousands turn income into cash flow, trade fake money for real assets, and take back control over their time, their wealth, and ultimately their life. Each week, you'll get strategy, tools, and mindset to build your own passive income machine. So my friends, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Welcome, my friends, to the Passive Income Machine podcast, episode number 1. Listen, you are on the microphone today with me, Ryan D. Lee, the host of the Passive Income Machine podcast. And as I get into this inaugural kickoff episode, I want to really lay out the mission of what this podcast is meant to accomplish. This podcast is in combination with the book launching the Passive Income Machine. The objective of the Passive Income Machine is to empower you, no matter who you are, with a set of financial principles, a decision-making process, and ultimately a system that will empower you with money to achieve financial freedom in 10 years or less. Now, I want to be clear. This podcast is a podcast about money. Unapologetically so. Not because money is the goal, but money is quite simply a tool. It's a tool that can either trap you in a life of limitations, or it's a tool that can unlock your greatest potential in life and unlock the opportunity for adventure to live life on your terms. I love what Ayn Rand says in her book, that money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish. But my friends, it will never replace you as the driver. This podcast is meant to empower you to be the driver, to use money as a tool in a principle-based way to buy your life, to buy your time back. A life where you own your time is one of the most precious gifts you can give yourself, because your time is the most precious, non-renewable, limited resource that we have. Every second that passes is one that you will never get back. And too many people trade the vast majority of their waking hours, the days, the months, the years, the decades in pursuit of money, hoping that one day they'll have enough money to buy their life back. But that never comes. So let me ask you this. Are you using your money right now in a systematic way to buy back your time? Or are you trading your time away, hoping that one day, following the conventional financial plan, maybe you'll have enough money to truly live, to chase the life of your dreams? Because here's the reality, my friends. Most people have been sold a lie. That freedom is something that you earn after decades of work, after decades of sacrifice, after decades of saving and waiting. But I want you to consider this as we kick off the Passive Income Machine podcast, that this is a system to invest, but more than anything, it's a system to empower you to embrace and accept your freedom. That you actually have the ability to make a choice today. And when you make this choice, it will set you free in a moment. And you'll understand that every single one of us have an opportunity to accept life as it comes at us and choose our response to the circumstance in life. Life is not happening to us, life is happening for us. And when you can make this decision, this show is about you having choice, because money's greatest intrinsic value is what it buys you. It buys you the ability to wake up every single day and choose what you do with your time. The greatest form of wealth that you can have, that I can have, is waking up each day and saying, I can do whatever I want today. And then choosing authentically, without money being the constraint of my life, to live a life of purpose, to live a purpose-driven life. So before we talk about system, strategies, or the passive income machine, I want you to consider something radical. You are already free. Freedom isn't something that you wait for, it's something that you step into. You can do this today, my friends. This podcast is your invitation to take back control, to break the cycle, to rise up and ultimately live free. So my friends, with that being said, let's get into episode number 1. Now listen, the big idea of this episode is really meant to be a wake-up call, that the traditional path to wealth, to freedom, to retirement is a lie. In fact, it's a cleverly designed trap that keeps most people trapped in a system of hoping, of waiting for one day. The financial game is rigged against you, but there is good news. You can opt out and you can start to win on your own terms. Now, I'm going to throw a couple of numbers at you to kind of kick this episode and this idea off, and you can look up your own numbers. But listen, the biggest number that stands out to me amongst all of the issues with the retirement crisis, the financial crisis, the lack of savings, the massive amounts of debt that Americans are carrying is this. Almost 50% of the middle class. The middle class are the people who have literally done everything right. They've followed the system to a T. They've likely gone to school. They've likely taken out student loans. They've likely got a job. They've been working. They've been saving. They've been following the rules, following the process. But 1 out of 2, nearly 50% of the middle class is going to retire at or near poverty. I want you to consider that for just a moment. That word is very, very important to understand. These people aren't just going to retire with a little bit less than they were hoping for. They're going to retire at or near poverty. Hey, it's Ryan jumping in real quick with something that you do not want to miss. The How to Retire in 10 Years Summit is coming up, and this is the event that makes everything we do here possible. If you're ready to build real passive income and take control over your money and ultimately your life in 2025, now's the time. Early registration is open, and there's an exclusive bonus waiting when you join the list. Just hit the link in the show notes or head to retireintenyears.com. All right, back to the show. My friends, if it's not you, look to your left, look to your right. It's your neighbor. Because here's the reality. When a system isn't working and we continue to blindly follow the same system expecting a different outcome, that is literally the definition of insanity. And every one of us have to learn this at some point. And most people learn this lesson before it's when it's too late. They trade 20, 30, 40 years of their life and only to realize they don't have enough to retire. They're completely dependent on the government. And they're worried that even if they have a little bit of money saved up, that they're going to outlive their savings. They're worried about taxes. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about markets. All of these things are working against most people. I've met with high 6, 7-figure earning entrepreneurs all the way down to the blue collar workers making, $50, $60, $70,000 a year. There is no difference for most people. They're struggling to get by. Whatever money they can save, they're handing over to some financial professional, and they're crossing their fingers hoping that a well-diversified portfolio, a tax-deferred account, and the conventional path to financial freedom is going to work for them one day. That is the biggest lie. That is the biggest fallacy. And I'll never forget in my own life when I started to learn this lesson for myself. When I graduated college, this was a rite of passage for me. You have to understand, and I don't know if I should be introducing this to you in the very first episode, but you're going to know who you're listening to. But for me, I was a high school dropout. I never loved the idea of school. I had a hard time sitting there and listening and being told what to do without any context of why I needed to learn the things I needed to learn. And so eventually when I had a choice, I chose to walk away. I dropped out of high school. And for me, I didn't drop out for anything productive. It's not like I dropped out to start a company. No, I dropped out because I was bored at school, and that boredom manifested in a teenager in very unproductive ways. But when I finally got my life back on track, all of the social conditioning for me just kicked right back in. I didn't even have a chance to even question it. I decided, oh my gosh, I need to get my life back on track. So I went back to school. I got my GED. After I got my GED, I immediately went right into college, and I started working to make up for lost time. And I'll never forget, as I started working and going through college, my only objective was to check the box. I just was trying to get through college as fast as I could because I felt like I was behind in my life. I was 23 when I started, and I graduated college in 2 years. I got my 4-year degree in 2 years because I just ran through it as fast as I could. And I'll never forget when I got out of college, I had my very first job. I moved from my home state of Utah to Tucson, Arizona, and maybe that was the thing that set me off. But anyway, I moved to Tucson, Arizona, and I finally got my first paycheck. What should have been a validating moment for me was the exact opposite. I'll never forget. This was back in the day when they gave you a check in an envelope. There was a little window on the check, and I could see that there was a check in there. And being a high school dropout, now college grad, I decided to kind of put that check in my back pocket and save it for the end of the day. I wanted to open it as a moment of celebration, a moment of arrival, to say I had done the thing that I was, that was prescribed to do in society. I'm a productive human being of all people now. And I opened that check. And I remember I looked at that check after taxes, after insurance, after moving expenses, after everything was taken out. There was less money in that check than I was making as a side hustler paying my way through college. And I remember I turned the check over a couple of times and I thought to myself, something has to be wrong. Where's the money? And my friends, this is when a little voice started to sound off in the back of my head that I should just quit now. I didn't want to move my new family and my wife from Utah to Arizona. I did this for the job. And here I am finding myself in Tucson, Arizona, making less money in a corporate job than I was as a side hustler. Now, at this time, my wife was pregnant with our first son, and he was even before he was born, we knew he had some heart defects, and so I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I knew I couldn't just quit and be one of those crazy people, and so I resolved right then and there to climb the corporate ladder as fast as I could. And as I climbed the corporate ladder, I started finding myself making trade-offs that I did not love. In fact, some of these trade-offs came with little trade-offs, and some of them were big. More weekends, more time away from my family, more time on the road. Yeah, I was making a little bit more money, but as I was making these trade-offs, I found myself resenting more and more and more the pathway that I was on. But I felt trapped. I was getting myself stuck in the rat race. Now, I was saving 10, 15% of my income. I was doing the thing I was taught to do, following all the rules. But I'll never forget when I decided, look, I'm going to retire early. That's my goal. I'm going to work hard, save hard, and I'm going to get out of this game as early as I possibly can. And in my mind, I thought I'm going to retire in my 50s. And so I upped my savings from 10% of my income to 20 to even 30% of my income. Every dollar that I was making, I was looking for a way to get it into my max funded 401k, to open up a brokerage account so I could go even faster, to start doing some option trading on the side, to try to make the system go faster. And in the beginning, I thought it was working. I thought maybe somehow I'm smart. Maybe I am a good investor because in 2005, 2006, 2007, where was the market going? It was going up. Now, I had nothing to do with that, but in 2008, I'll never forget when the rug was pulled out for me, and I learned the greatest lesson that I've ever learned in my pursuit of financial freedom and retiring early. First, you guys know what happened in 2008. For me, I lost almost everything I had saved over the previous almost 5 years in my pursuit of retiring early. And this was a big wake-up call for me because the first thing I learned is I had literally no control over the outcome. I didn't know why I made the money, and I didn't know why I was losing it. And everyone I turned to said, this is just the way the world works. It's always going to come back. Just wait, Ryan. Everything's going to work out. But I'll never forget over the previous several years as I had been making these trade-offs to make more money so that I could save more money, I was modeling my life after people that as I looked at them under this new light as they were losing money, I realized I wanted nothing from their life. Many of these people were on their second and third marriage. Many of these people were completely out of, they weren't healthy individuals. Many of these people seemed to not be navigating with a moral compass. And here I am telling myself, I'm going to follow this pathway and I'm going to retire early. And as I watched all of my coworkers who were 20, in some cases 30 years ahead of me, losing money and lamenting over the idea that they might not ever be able to retire, for the first time something clicked in my brain. Not only did I not have any control over my investments, they didn't have any control over theirs either. I was following the same pathway and I got a window into my future. If I follow that pathway, I might be able to retire, I might not, but I have no control over that outcome. And I realized the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. My friends, today there is a retirement crisis because most people are simply following the conventional path. They are literally hoping for something that the system isn't designed to help them achieve. I want you to consider this. The Wall Street, the conventional financial system of putting money in a 401k, deferring your taxes, opening up a brokerage account and routing as much as you possibly can through the market in some form or fashion. This is what people do. This is the system that most people follow. Now, every system is perfectly designed to get the outcome and the results that it is getting. And if you don't like the results that you're getting, it's usually the necessity that you have to tinker with or change the system. And as I looked at the system of traditional financial advice, I realized I didn't like those results. And in the beginning, I tried to change the system. I tried to optimize the system by, opening up my own brokerage account, doing my own option trading. But the more I looked at that system, the more I realized I fundamentally had no control. So to the best of my ability to optimize that system, it was constrained by the law of averages. Winning in that system was taking average results and adding 1 or 2 points to it. Losing in that system was taking average results and subtracting 1 or 2 points from it. And if you won the system and you got average plus 1 or 2, everyone in the world celebrated you, saying you were the anomaly, you did well. But that didn't mean I was any more or less financially free. It just means I didn't lose the game quite as bad as the person next to me. And I realized I did not want to play that game. I'll never forget when I read the very first book that opened me up to a brand new, different game. It was Rich Dad Poor Dad, the little purple book, right? The little purple Bible. And in that book, I understood everything I was fighting against. I was trying to use a system to get extraordinary results when the best that that system could deliver for me was average results at best. Inside of the conventional financial system, I was fighting all of the economic forces, the wealth forces that will either make you or break you depending on how you position your money with these forces or against these forces. I was fighting inflation. I was fighting taxes, I was fighting interest rates, and I was fighting opportunity cost. Every dollar that I parked in my 401k, every dollar that I parked in our brokerage account was being slowly destroyed by inflation. I was deferring my biggest liability, which is taxes. I was hoping to get an average return in the market, but then racking up higher interest rates on credit cards and opportunity cost. Even if there were great opportunities to take advantage of awesome investments, I couldn't see them, because my money was tied up in accounts that I was locked out from. I mean, just take this into consideration. If you're putting your money in an IRA today, you are not smart enough. You are not capable enough. You are not good enough to access your money. You are being locked away from your money until the age of 59 and a half, because apparently you're not good enough to access your own money. Opportunity cost is working against you. And for most people, they are literally taking one step forward and two steps back. One step forward and two steps back. And this is why there's such a big retirement challenge in our world today. The system is not set up to allow you to win, at least not in a short period of time. The mission of the Passive Income Machine, the mission of this podcast, is to empower you with a completely different system. Not to do things better, but to quite literally do the exact opposite, to flip the script on money and to open you up to a brand new possibility. I love this book written by Dr. Ben Hardy, where he talks about 10x is easier than 2x. And inside of this book, he talks about setting a 10x goal. When you make when you set incrementally improving goals, there's 1,000 different ways you can, get a little bit better results. But when you 10x your goal, most systems, most pathways, they're not even relevant to a 10x goal. And so when you 10x your goal, by default, everything that's average falls to the wayside, and you realize there's really only one or two pathways to objectively and actually achieve a 10x goal. My friends, I'm going to invite you to consider setting a 10x goal with your money to achieve financial freedom in 10 years or less, because it's your obligation. Now, that's a pretty harsh word. What do I mean by saying financial freedom is your obligation? Let me give you a little bit of opportunity to consider this. I believe that we have a purpose on earth. Whether that purpose is somewhat manifested as a father, as a mother, as a brother, as a sister, as a son, a daughter, all of the different roles that we play inside of our family, whether it's somewhat manifested inside of your religious organization that you belong to, whether it's somewhat manifested inside of your career, you have a purpose on earth. And most people are kept from that purpose. Most people are kept from living a purpose-driven life, not because they don't want it, but because they can't see it. And the reason they can't see it is their mind, their time, their energy, their attention is fixated on go to school, get a job, save diligently in a 401k, and wait for one day. My friends, the reason you have an obligation to become financially free is you have solutions to the problems that this world has. In fact, the world is filled with problems today. We can see it when we turn on the news. And most people blindly, think that someone else is going to solve those problems. But I want you to consider this. You have unique gifts, skills, talents, and abilities that are unique to you, which means the problems that exist in the world are a wake-up call to you to be the solution to those problems. And the way you find the fulfillment that you seek in your life is by living that purpose-driven life, by leaning into your talents, and by serving your fellow human beings, whether that's in your family, whether that's in your community, whether that's in your profession, whether that's starting something brand new. The reason you have an obligation to become financially free is it puts you in a position where you can make choices without the constraints of money holding you back. Money is now a tool to quite literally empower you to build and live a life that matters, to construct a purpose-driven life, and to make not only your world better, but the world around you. My friends, there is a massive retirement crisis, and you can choose to be part of that problem, or you can choose to be a solution to that problem. And here's the solution. When you prove that financial freedom in 10 years or less isn't just some marketing ploy on some podcast that you found on some podcast player, but an actual reality for you, you become a beacon of light, a beacon of hope and inspiration for someone else. That is what this podcast is about. It's about empowering you with the system, the process, the community, the tools, and the resources, everything you need to quite literally take control of your money, operate it in a very systematic way, align it with the wealth forces, inflation, taxes, opportunity cost, and what was the last one that I said? Inflation, taxes, opportunity cost, and interest rates. Yeah, we're going to align it with all of those forces so that you can actually become financially free. These wealth forces, rather than working against you as they do in the traditional system, will now work for you. Now, I'm opening up a lot of open-ended loops inside of this first episode, and I'm excited to be able to do that for you, because someday is a lie. If you're just going to wait for retirement someday when you're old and gray and everything one day is going to miraculously work, you're going to arrive at that day with a heart full of regrets. So the new game that this podcast is going to open you up to considering is there is a framework. There is a framework that you can start using right now for money, to start using money as the tool to build cash flow. Cash flow is the gateway to buying your time back. Cash flow is the gateway to becoming financially free. Now, this podcast is in alignment with the launch of a book. This book is a representation of 40 years of experience operating a system. I'm going to tell you more about that system as we get going, but I've been personally operating this system for almost 15 years in my own life. The mentor that I learned it from is going to be doing some of these episodes with me, Bob Allen, and he wrote a book back in the 1980s that gave me, when I was ready to find it, that gave me the solution for me to walk away from my corporate job in just 5 years. After I realized that the 401k, the traditional path, everything I was following was quite literally a dead end. I was literally repeating the definition of insanity with my life and with my time, and the opportunity cost was massive. I'll tell you more about my story as we go. The opportunity cost was massive. And as I hit my lowest point inside of my life, I found the humility to look outside of myself for answers. And I'm so grateful I found Bob Allen. I'm excited to introduce you to him in future episodes on this podcast, because he wrote a book that quite literally changed my life. We are now co-authoring a rewrite of that very same book that changed my life, and you as a listener of this podcast will have an opportunity to acquire that book, to operate that book, and to use that book as a gateway to your financial freedom. So my friends, this is the inaugural episode. My name is Ryan Dealey. I'm going to be the host of this episode, and over the next several episodes, I'm going to be laying out the system, the investment process of the passive income machine, so you can understand the pillars inside of this system that make it work for you. Then I'm going to be opening up my network and connecting with other like-minded individuals. I'm going to bring clients on that have been operating this system for years inside of their life. You're going to get to hear real stories, not just my story, but real stories from the thousands of clients we've been able to serve over the last decade. And you're going to also get to hear from some of my mentors, my coaches, people who see the world a little bit differently, but the principles of the passive income machine apply to you as the individual. Fundamental principles are truths. And when we can see and understand a truth and align our behavior and our money with the truth, here's the reality. We get realistic, predictable outcomes. And if we ever find ourselves deviated from the ideals that we want to achieve, it's a simple matter of realigning our actions and our behaviors with the truth. That's what this podcast is. The podcast is the truth about money, because the truth, my friends, will set you free. Now, for those of you that are joining me on this podcast will sometimes be direct, sometimes be bold, sometimes be energetic. And you might feel like I'm yelling at you, but I'm not. I'm inviting you to consider in the deepest part of your soul and the deepest part of your heart that you get one shot. You get one shot at this thing called life. And the last thing I want you to do is to waste it. The last thing I want you to do is arrive in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and beyond, and realize your greatest opportunity, your talent, your song was left inside of you because you spent all of your time chasing a system that was never meant to set you free. My friends, welcome to the Passive Income Machine, and this is episode number 1. All right, my friends, that's a wrap for today. If you're serious, though, about turning everything we talked about into your new reality, there's only one place you need to be. It's the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. This is your chance to learn exactly how to unlock financial freedom and build passive income in 2025. Early registration is live right now with an exclusive bonus for our early action takers. Don't miss out. Head to the link in the show notes or just head on over to retireintenyears.com and I'll catch you at the summit.